Hello, everybody. This is my first time in Tulsa, and this has been amazing. The level and the bar has been set high for anyone else who wants access to me, so shout out to 108 Contemporary on that. So thank you. Jen Boyd-Martin is unfortunately not here with us today, but I do want to shout her out because she's the one that found me. I did not plan to be in Tulsa. I did not know what happened in Tulsa. And she brought me here. It's been a year and a half in the making. So shout out to her for bringing me here. I just want to say a little house rules. Please, I know my work is very tactile and people would like to touch it, but please do not touch the work. I will greatly appreciate that. And let's get started. A little story. We're going to be doing a lot of story time here, so please bear with me. I just want to bring a bit of context. I was born in St. Thomas, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and raised in Miami, Florida, Sunshine State. I don't know why I'm in the Midwest. No, I know why. So my Caribbean roots and background and upbringing is very, very deeply rooted in me and in the work that you see before you today. So very traditional trajectory, becoming an artist. Ms. Hornstein, shout out to her, my art school teacher, 3rd, 4th grade, set me aside. Hey, SHENEQUA, I see some talent in you. I'm like, what you talking about? Everybody doing art, just like I'm doing art. But she had the eye to see potential in me. I applied for a magnet art program in my middle school. Shout out to Norland Middle. And from there, 8th grade, I knew I wanted to become an artist. Went to the top performing arts high school, Newell School of the Arts, worked with professional college professors, ended up graduating from the Kansas City Art Institute with my bachelor's in fibers and textiles, 3 years from a 4-year college. Goes to show I wasn't playing no games. And I just recently, in 2017, graduated with my master's in design for fashion, body, and garment, where I worked with the amazing Nick Cave, one of my favorite ultimate artists, so that was a dream come true. That he is now my mentor. And let's get started. We're gonna start here with Cocoon. This is my first woven project that I did when I learned how to weave in the summer of 2012. Now, if you don't know, I'm a very ambitious, determined person. When I learned how to weave, we usually go through a sampler, very foundational, let's play around with this, let's play around with that. Then it came to like, okay, what would you like to work on as your first project? I want to go straight into overshot, the most complex patterning, like level probably 4 or 5, and I'm just starting. I was like, I could do it. And look, I did it. So I started weaving with synthetic hair. The reason I wove with synthetic hair, first and foremost, as a material choice, is to see if that is possible. My teacher, Erica Hansen at the time, was like, oh, you can weave with anything. I was like, I'm gonna put this to the test. You sure, girl? All right, let's see. And she was very correct. Hair has always been a part of my life. I grew up in a black hair salon. My aunt owned a hair salon. Friends of mine did hair. I did not have to pay for my hair for most of my childhood. When I became an adult, I was like, these prices high to get your hair done. But anyways, I got respect for hairstylists, black women who are out here doing it, black men who are out here doing it. It's just a part of me. I know how to braid, but I'm not a hairstylist. I do not consider myself to be a hairstylist. If it's a part of my work, yes, I do, but I do not do anyone else's hair. But yes, synthetic hair is definitely, growing up, been a material that was frowned upon in my community. It was something that the poor of the poor had access to. And different myths I grew up with about, oh, it lets your hair fall out. Oh, don't braid with that, girl, that look tacky, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, okay, we're not messing with that. But then I decided to work with it more intentionally in my work because I wanted to bring beauty to it. I wanted to shine a light that, because even though it's not necessarily the first thing people go to when they go to a beauty supply store to get braids done, twists done, whatever styling, it is still beautiful. And That's pretty much where we began. All the works before you are different points and periods in my trajectory of making. 2012, my very last piece in here to date is Carnival 2019. I made this piece. So I'm gonna kind of take you along a bit of a journey. So please bear with me. We're gonna go this way. My Hair, My Crown, undergrad at the Kansas City Art Institute. This piece was a part of our overall class thesis. So each artist had an art space, no matter what department you were in, we all kind of culminated in this space. And this piece I specifically had on view as a part of that. Outside of that, knowing that I was doing my bachelor's degree in fibers and textiles, a part of that we had to go out as professional practice and find a separate space to have an exhibition. So I ended up having my first solo in undergrad, and it was titled Synthetic Ties, which none of those works are in here because majority of those works are sold. So, shout out to that. And however, this piece is not for sale because it's just a remembrance of my journey of where I left off in undergrad. And then also, you know, the price will go up. As I get older and famous, you know, but My Hair, My Crown, at this point, from that piece to this piece, I'm now at a point of experimenting more with hair, doing weekly projects with hair, having conversations with my sisters, other Black women, creating community around hair to the point that now I am looking at it from a different lens. I'm starting to evolve the story. The narrative is extending, and it's bigger than me now. It starts with me. Once I put it out into the world, my conversations with you all expand and grow the work, all right? So at this point, I am experimenting with scale a bit more. I love working big. However, not all big work sell. So FYI for other artists out here, we gotta do what we gotta do. So I sometimes, at this point, was working small too, but if I could have it all, my works will always be, this will probably be the smallest, and I wanna work bigger from this, but I'll get there. Rollers and other accessories came a bit later for me. At this point, it was really about the black cotton, which is the warp, which goes this way. So if I was to rotate it and it's vertical, you'll understand how something is woven, right? But it's that way, so it kind of has a different conversation horizontally. However, all of the works here, I always work in black. Reason for that is anything that I weave into it, it will automatically pop. And I also love black on black action happening. So it's sort of like a breath. And then I go in and I incorporate other colors. And I love a black and gold, personally. So that's kind of how My Hair, My Crown, I don't even know what, 2013, 2014, because 2012. So this is probably 2013, 2014. I produced a lot of work that's not even in this space. Let me just throw that out there right now. So if I'm like trying to figure out years, your girl was a machine in school. So that's kind of My Hair, My Crown. Then I have a pop of color to break up the space, but I want to kind of skip Gamma Sna for now and go into Tubular Plaits. Now, Tubular Plaits is an extension of this warp, My Hair, My Crown, right here. And what I found out is when I weave a lot of yardage. I'm like, go big, go home. If I'm about to dress a loom, and for weavers, understand, it's a lot of work to dress a loom. The physical weaving part is nothing in comparison to making sure your pattern is able to weave. If it's not, something is wrong with your threading process, okay? So I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna be doing these crazy patterns and going in, I'm gonna need like 8 or 10 yards wounded on for my warp, okay? So I'm able to get several pieces out of one warp, okay? Just to give a bit of perspective. So a lot of the works here, like the colorful one, that's all one warp, but separated into various multiple pieces, okay? So at this point with the work, I started to think about the way that I will style the hair. It moved and it shifted from the skill set of making patterns with hair to now what happened in that hair salon when you were growing up? What conversations took place? What hairstyles did you like? What gravitated you to braids all the time? What about that motion and repetition comes to the surface? What drives you? And I started to make that happen with this piece. So as you can see, there's loose hair happening, but then there's actual braids also mimicking the loose hair, right? And I just love the vast contrast. It's sort of like a push and pull, like where did it start and where did it end kind of conversation. If you really sit with the work, you kind of feel like, how did she even get this in here? I love that. I love that. What is going on here? So that's Tubular Plaits. Then we come to this piece right here. This is a sister to a smaller piece. So the title of it is Multicolor Roll Her Up 1. I do have a 2 that's sort of like a smaller version of this one. She's Royal, So Royal, body of work, which are this piece and Multi-Blonde Loose Onions, which is the very full, loose hair happening. This point in my trajectory of my art practice is super, super major. I recently won an award that granted me $25,000, did not apply for it, literally got a phone call in 2017, 2 months before Christmas. Hey, SHENEQUA, you are the first Daniel Arsham Fellow. We're gonna give you $25,000 to do whatever you want. And yeah, thought it was a joke. It was real. Shout out to Young Arts, an incredible not-for-profit organization based in Miami, but it's nationwide, and they support young artists from the ages of 15 to 18 years old in all the arts. So that's performing, music, dance, theater, as well as visual, okay? Poetry, the whole 9. Incredible, incredible, incredible. And I was one of the honorable mentions. I didn't even win. I was one of the honorable mentions, I believe, sophomore or junior year of high school. And they looked at the winners and honorable mentions from the year that I was also awarded, and they chose me unanimously. 6 amazing artists in one space chose me. Random phone call, nothing but God. But with that came a lot of opportunity. Not only did they give me the money to do it, I was also able to have a 1-year mentorship with Daniel Arsham, who's an incredible, incredible artist himself, but really known in the architecture world. So he has an architecture studio as well as an art studio practice. And based in New York, went out there, saw him in the studio, saw him doing his thing, talked about some of the stuff, what I wanted to do. In fact, I went with him with a completely different piece called Blonde Plaits. That's also part of that series. And, you know, just kind of figured out where I want the work to go. And from there, a couple months later, they gave me a phone call, like, do you want to do Expo Chicago? Yeah, you gonna pay for everything? Yeah. So Expo Chicago is a fantastic art fair that happens every year in Chicago at the Navy Pier. And at the time, it happened in September. I got my own booth, about 20 feet by 20 feet. That's huge. I was the youngest in the space, because you gotta understand that these art fairs, they are museums, galleries that have their own artists that they represent, that they showcase to sell their work. So to have me in there, all my work, I had 6 pieces The 2 here was a part of that, and I was able to get 100% of my profit, not split it with nobody, nothing but God, and sold 2 pieces there as well in the art fair. It was just incredible 4 days and put me even on the map in a bigger way and extended my art practice today actually, because people still contact me from that experience and knowing me there. So you never know what doors can lead to something else and open up for you. But this piece, and at this point in my career, I was working a full-time job in the corporate world. I was working at a private wealth management firm, and I was exhausted. I don't know how I did this. I made this body of work in like 3 months. It was long. 9 to 5, from there, go to the studio, which was very far from my house on the south side of Chicago. I went all the way up north to Irving Park. I don't know if you guys know, but that's like a 45-minute train ride. Yeah, it was a lot, but definitely worth it. And I think what came out of it for me was the conversations in the space. In the art world, mediums such as painting, drawings, sculptures are the creme de creme. Nobody has seen craft in that space, God knows how many years, if that. Probably I was the first time so many people had came into the booth just like, oh my God, this is woven, this is a weaving, like what? Oh my goodness, like this is crazy. This is a part of an art conversation, contemporary art, what's happening here? That's my job. I really wanna break the glass ceiling and put some respect on craft in this industry. And that's where I'm going with the work. So those 2 pieces speak to that. Now, the colorful babies. Let's go to, it's Carnival because everybody seems to like it here in Tulsa. So let's talk about how I went from this very neutral color palette. Oh, before we go there, let me talk about these babies in the middle. I gotta put some respect on these. These sculptural works here are studies. In undergrad, every week, I was giving myself little projects, and these are the products of those projects. I was weaving these yardage and yardage, and I was just tired of just putting something on a wall. And I really wanted to see what it felt like to actually wear a crown that I personally wove. Not somebody braiding my hair, not somebody doing my hair, but me. So I sewed these into my hair, different points. It's very heavy. Let me give y'all a little perspective. This is about 6 to 8 yards woven. I don't even know how many yards that is, but it was a lot. It don't look like a lot, but it's a lot. And I had a friend of mine braid my natural hair down, and I literally had a mirror at both ends, and I sewed it in with the needle and thread. I had to live with it because I had it in for a week, each of these pieces, and I documented along the way with photographs on how it felt on a day-to-day, how I went to sleep, how I was going to take a shower, because I did not have a shower cap big enough to put none of this in. I don't know how I did it. I mean, moving, and I was just like, girl, we're going to have to take this out. But what was very interesting and what I got from that experience was people's perspective on my hair, my crown now. It's like, what is that? Where did you buy that from? Ooh, can I get some of that in my hair? I'm like, what is happening right now? It was extremely weird and interesting. Different people in Kansas City tapping into that. Like, I really wish I was back home in Miami in my hood. Like, ooh, what would that be like? But it was very fascinating, the conversation around my hair now. It wasn't like, oh, I see a black girl, wearing whatever she's wearing. It's really just like, what is that on her head? conversation, and I documented those notes and I reflected on that to figure out how the work and which direction I wanted it to go in. So that's a little, context around these two sculptural pieces. Now let's go to woven narratives. Woven narratives, at this point, this is around 2019. I was invited to have a solo exhibition at Ha Contemporary in Kansas City, Missouri, which is a huge space. And I was on the cusp of leaving my full-time job, corporate. In fact, I put in my 2 weeks right before I made this work. And my whole thing was always to be a full-time artist. I never knew what that looked like, but I knew that was the goal. And it was very important for me, and took the leap of faith. Took a leap of faith. And I said, you know what? I got money saved up. I could do this. And I did just that. And I haven't looked back since. It's been 2.5 years that I've been doing this full time. Thank God for that, because it is very difficult. And other artists know what I'm talking about when I say this, to make it happen. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody, and I understand why, but it's a lot of work. And I made it. I can honestly say I'm defining that and figuring out more and more what it is to be an artist and what that looks like for me. So Woven Narratives speaks just to that. I wanted to celebrate this moment in my life. I wanted to honor that, that this is something the little girl in me always wanted, and I'm actually doing that. So as you can see, it's full of color. I didn't know I had it in me to do it, but it's like it was pent up, like, girl, why you never started with color in the first place? Well, I did, and I left, but it's okay. But it's very colorful. Woven Narratives means so much to me. All of my bodies of work do, but this is very special. Personally, shifted my trajectory completely. It's literally a mashup and a story of my experience abroad in Ghana, West Africa, which you can see here. These are the fabrics that I learned how to weave alongside Master Weaver Sebastian Dai on a horizontal loom. So this is a completely different loom. That's why it looks completely different from my other weavings here, all right? Shout out to the Center for Craft based in Asheville, North Carolina. They gifted me my first fellowship award, $15,000 right after my undergrad. I literally got the phone call right when I was taking my final exam. I know I failed that exam. It's okay. I was going to Ghana, West Africa. You know how everybody, when they graduate, like, what you doing next? Oh, I knew what I was doing next. So I decided to propose to do that. Ghana has always spiritually been a part of my life since I was young. I can remember being 12, 13 years old, fascinated with prints and patterns from the continent and being like, oh my goodness, I love that, I want to wear that. But half the time I didn't know it was woven. I was like, what? What are you talking about? And then I looked and it's like these little threads put together and they wove that to make this? Are you crazy? Like, where they do that at? Like, I was like, I need to learn that. And that's when I fell in love with weaving. So for me to have that full circle moment from being 12, 13 years old to seeing it in magazines to now actually learning how to do it alongside a master weaver in the Volta region, I'm like, what is happening? And I decided to combine it with what I already have been doing, but really reflect on my journey and memories and experience with Sebastian of learning these complex patterns. Like, I was there for 3 months, right after graduating in 2014, I would say around August to November, somewhere around there, and day in, day out, 9 to 5, every single day weaving, outside, in like 80-something degree, 90-something degree weather. What? Okay. According to Sebastian, out of the alphabet, I left off at the letter B. I'm like, what? So I asked him, I said, how long will it take me to actually become somewhat of a master of weaving? And he's like, 2 to 3 years. Got it. So I say all of that to say I plan on going back, hopefully next year, give it a year, and just immerse and be engulfed and just continue my, my training of learning these complex, beautiful storytelling patterns from him. In this piece specifically, I have some braiding, I have some bantu knotting. I even started involving some pony beads and just different accessories that I grew up in the hair salon and embellishments in hair, but also thinking about composition and like my training of the art and how I always, when it comes to my work, think about how I'm having the audience or the viewer eyes move from top to bottom. I gotta shout out the bobby pins because that's just been a hit. I came to bobby pins later in my practice. I was trying to figure out what can I make as a hanging mechanism, as a framing for the work, because I never liked putting it in an actual frame. I felt like I was doing a disservice to the work if it does go in a glass frame. Like, yeah, I don't want nobody to touch it, but I also don't want nobody to be like, what does that mean? I felt like it was pointless. I still want you to be able to come, you know, close to it to really see like, oh shoot, like she really working with like unconventional materials here. So I was tired of pinning something to a wall. So I was like, okay, what can I do? Something gotta give, something gotta give. And I was like, ooh, bobby pins. But if I'm gonna do bobby pins, I really wanted to do what it actually supposed to do, which is to hold your hair in place. And I went to Kara, who's a fantastic metalsmith in Chicago. She was doing her master's at the time as well, or probably finishing up, I can't recall. But anyways, I went to her with a design in mind that you see before you. And I came to that design through 6 existing bobby pins. I wanted this bobby pin to be the icing on the cake. I didn't want it to distract from the work. I didn't want when you come in, the first thing you see is like, oh, you know, I really want you to sit with it and move your eyes up and down and be like, oh shoot, that's a bobby pin. Yes, job well done, I did it. So I was really thinking about it, and the more I talked with her, because this is her first time doing something like this, she did several tests. We tested out the actual tension. Each piece, the bobby pin was made for that piece. Let me just say that as well. She was like on it. But then we realized as I brought the works in to actually pin it, that there were points where it does hug it like a bobby pin, but there's points that it does not. And it was so much she can do with the metal and actually make that happen. And I was like, you know what, don't worry about it. Because you know what, I'm gonna still attach it with actual bobby pins. So, how each of these pieces are on a bobby pin is with a bobby pin. That's the story of the bobby pins. Thank you, thank you.